Is the guest here?
Nope.
My, I don't see me yet.
Okay. You're live. You're live. You're live.
Okay, my villagers, my villagers. I tell you, Ashe, Ashe. It is always good to be back amongst you. Give me renewed energy. You know, this work is so revealing what I'm doing. It brings things in focus that sometimes we overlook or I'll overlook. We are in such turmoil, you know, that the battle. In many cases, become one with your own people, the battle does. Because of our situation, it's all nuanced and untended, you know? Now, this condition has been identified by experts, of course, like Dr. Jordy Grau, post traumatic slave syndrome, and others, of course. It has not been treated in any normal fashion. And I'd say until that happens, as you would treat any malady, many of us cannot conceive racism above what is plain to us, cannot conceive racism or other things. And that's the thrust of my podcast. Unapologetic amateur looking for experts in Africanism. The term Africanism is deliberate and intentional. Just as we name the study of other major maladies like cancer, oncology, the study of heart disease, cardiology, the study of viruses, epidemiology, I put the name Africanism to a malady just as serious or more serious than any that have ever come our way. The United Nations just declared what have been I've been trying to convey for the last 2.5 years on this podcast, and that is the transatlantic slave trade was the worst atrocity ever perpetrated against humanity. The United Nations General Assembly adopted a landmark resolution declaring the transatlantic trafficking and racialized chattel slavery enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity. And I would add, it was not just a crime, but an injury that had metastasized throughout generations. And if that's the case, why do we continue to call it slavery? That's confusing and misleading. Dr. Maramba Anna, who wrote the book Let the Circle Be Unbroken, termed it Maafa. That's a Kiswahili term meaning great tragedy, to give it a more accurate description. And I coined the phrase, the condition, African slave virus 401. Because, see, someone said, you have to name a thing before you can cure a thing. That's why I am intentional about who I bring on, those who can enlighten us to things we may have missed. My guest today is one of those people who has been fighting this fight for as long as I have known him. Through an organization called Simotep is where I met him. And it gets to beneath the obvious. You know, I remember an incident, I don't know if he remembers, with Dr. Henry Louis Gate, who was sent over to Africa on the pretense of clarifying some old myth. Well, he came back with what I thought was beautiful coverage. It passed right over my head. But when I called Betty Dobson, the co-founder of Simotep, with glee. She said, we just got back from demonstrating in front of his house in Boston. I gasped. I said, what? They had picked up the nuance of the message, implying that Africans were equally responsible for their enslavement. See, that's the kind of work this brother does. Get beneath the crap. But let me thank my team first. I want to thank Sheila, my producer. I want to thank Juanita, my advisor, and I want to thank my promo crew, my little ones. And, of course, my engineer, Norm, keeping it real here. And my co-host, Rose Moore, who's still on that cruise, but she will be back next week. You know, my guest today is none other than, and I'm going to read his bio because it is impressive, and he's done so much. Remember, I have the talking points here, but I'm going to read the bio here. Norm, let me just see. I'm not so good with these instruments, but let me see what I have here. Okay.
Just introduce
Yeah?
Just introduce him.
No, I want to. I got to read this man's bio. He's got a lot that we need to embrace, because this is basically what this my whole podcast is about: bringing people on who can share important information that they have studied and worked on. You know, I tell you about that. When I said unapologetic amateur looking for experts in Africanism, that's very deliberate. It means that there are people beyond me or you who study this stuff and needs to be recognized as such, because without that, we're just going to continue to keep having the same output that we have had over the years, which means that I can't find it, so I'm not going to read it, but I'm just going to say, called his book. I will read it later on, though. He wrote the book, The Unauthorized Psychoanalysis of Donald J. Trump. Need I say any more? There it is in living colors. Welcome, Dr. McIntosh. I'm going to get that in. That if I'm going to find it, because I want to read your bio. But you just come on and we'll want to introduce you to my villagers, because I explained to them they're going to have a great guy on today, and they knew you from before, so they were very excited about you coming on. So welcome, Dr. McIntosh.
Thank you so much, Sister Ruby. Thank you to everybody who had played a role in putting together today's podcast. I was very happy when Sister Brown, I'm sorry, I have the name wrong, Brown Bird, yes. Sister, the last name is Bird. Right. Sister Bird invited me to come on to your program. She just kind of left it open as to what I might discuss, and said, well, what are you doing, recently? So, many of you remember me when I was here talking about CMOTAP's efforts against Netflix for running a racist cartoon, which featured, among other things, a girl throwing menstrual blood in a black boy's face, and a man portrayed as an ape while he was having, his shadow cast against the wall as an ape while he was having sex with a woman, and many other things, baby and drugs, that sort of thing. So we were successful in that. We demonstrated at Netflix, at a bunch of other places, at the Paramount, when one of the producers would come, and unfortunately it was our brother Steph Curry. When he would come, we met him at the Paramount Theater, and eventually Netflix took it off of the air. But it took it took more than it should take. Mm-hmm. There's some groups that when they tell you something is anti them, people get fined, people get fired, and it immediately just takes a word. And unfortunately, we are not able to exhibit, or haven't been able to exhibit, that kind of power at this point. Today, I'm going to talk about something that's currently in the news, which is the current U.S. president, Donald Trump.
Exactly. Could I stop you for a moment, because I found your bio, and I just want to share this with my congregation to let them know who we are dealing with, how we are dealing, and why we are dealing. Dr. James C.
It's not too long a bio, sister.
No, Dr. James C. I'm very quick. I read very fast. Dr. James C. McIntosh is the host of the radio program Minefield on Radio WBAI 99.5 FM. He currently serves chairman of BEPAA, the Board of the Education of People of African Ancestry, and co-chair of CIMOTAP, committed to eliminate media offenses to African people. He is semi-retired as a physician after a 40-year career in public psychiatry. He is a graduate of New Jersey Medical School, now known as Rutgers Medical School. He completed 3 years of residency at Columbia Psychiatric Program at Harlem Hospital and 1 year of joint psychiatric residency and fellowship at Montefiore Hospital of Einstein Medical School with a clinical assignment at Rikers Island. He is the former medical director of the Mental Health Division of Services of the Underserved and former medical director of Upper Manhattan Mental Health Center and former executive director of Council Center for Problems of Living. He is the former president of CIR, the Committee of Interns and Residents, the nation's largest union of salaried physicians. He also is the former Surgeon General of the UNIAACF. He has received numerous awards, including the Health Activist of the Year Award from family and friends of Dr. Matula Sako, and the MOTEP Physician Award from UNIAACF, and the Malcolm X Award from the New York chapter of the National Association of Kawada Organization. And I did that purposely. I do things intentionally on this program because what I say to us, we need to bring information that's going to be worthy to us from worthy people. See, I don't just bring information because I quote the scripture that says, "My people will perish for lack of information." But that does not mean just any information. I want people to come with truth. I want them to come with, what they have studied. So that's why I thought it was necessary. So go on and finish. You have just written you're not just written your book. You wrote that. But when did you write that book? What?
It was serialized in the Amsterdam sometime before 2020, when Trump came into office. Before 2020, It was serialized in 7 articles in the Amsterdam News, and then I added other articles to it and put it out as a book in 2020, when he first came into office. And in it, we made a lot of predictions, and those things have all come to pass. But right now, today, I'll just talk about what's going on with him now and the implications for our people. And what we have to understand is that the bizarre personality of your current president is really the personality of this country and how it's treated us over the years. Just as a little background, back in 2016 or so, when he was running for president the first time, a group of doctors began writing to the newspapers and writing to the president of the United States, complaining that this guy was dangerous. And they didn't make a specific diagnosis, but they pointed out some of his behaviors. I could tell you the names of some of them. One of them was the lady who wrote the book Trauma and Recovery, and that was Dr. Judith Herman. And another person who kind of very early in the picture began to ring the alarm was a guy, Dr. Gartner, who had been, was a prominent psychologist. When I said Judith Herman, she's a psychiatrist. And, they pointed out basically how he seems to not be totally in touch with reality with some of the things he was saying. This was before everybody started documenting how many untrue things that he was saying. But they were alarmed because you're now talking about somebody that's getting ready to be the president of the United States. And although many of them, and probably most of them, maybe all of them, have lied, none to the degree where it would make people think that they didn't really know what the truth was. But in his case, they thought that. So now they were hampered to some extent from giving him a diagnosis because of something called the Goldwater Rule. The Goldwater Rule was something from the American Psychiatric Association, which basically said that if you're looking at people in a public arena, but you haven't had like a personal interview with them, they haven't given you permission to diagnose them and to tell people about it, you can't do that. That it's against the rules of the American Psychiatric Association. So the way they got around that was through something called the duty to warn. The duty to warn had to do with a case in which a spurned lover told his psychiatrist that he was going to kill this woman that he was in love with, and, in quotes, love. And the psychiatrist didn't do anything. And he went, because generally what you say to psychiatrist is confidential. And the man went and killed her. So basically there's something called the Goldwater rule, not the Goldwater rule, excuse me, something called the Tarasov case came about. And it was a case in which this guy was found guilty, and the ruling and the dictum became that a psychiatrist has to warn a victim if in his sessions he finds out that this person is going to harm them, and he knows or thinks strongly that person is going to do that. And that's called a duty to warn. So under the duty to warn, they said, look, this person right here is dangerous, and we have a duty to let the people know. And at that time, pretty much everybody was in consensus that the man was a narcissist, that he had narcissistic personality disorder.
Just one question. So does power, you think, reveals, a change, like what not a change. Does it reveal or does it reshapes one personality power along? Because when he got into power, it seems like he just went off the rail. Or maybe he was that way on the rail.
No, some of the aspects of his personality, they were there all along. Okay. But I just think that people weren't familiar enough with all of his history, because most people didn't know, for instance, that like with his first wife, who was Ivana, that she had in sworn testimony said that one day, because he was upset about pain he was feeling from the scalp reduction, which he's done to try to make it look like he has a full set of hair, he grabbed her and ripped some of her hair out and then raped her. And then she said that she was crying. The next morning when he came, he saw her crying, and he said to her, "Did it hurt?" Now, see, that's sadistic behavior. That's going beyond being simply a narcissist. That's sadistic behavior. So to just cut back to the what's going on now, is after having observed all of his behavior during his first presidency and this sort of thing, Dr. Gartner and a group of other psychiatrists, at that time, we had about 70,000 psychiatrists, psychologists, mental health practitioners, and other people interested in the field who signed on to a petition. We talked about back now in 2016, 17, signed a petition saying, look, you got to do something. This guy is dangerous. Some people were recommending a full neuropsychiatric examination. Other people were really demanding that the 25th Amendment be invoked, because the 25th Amendment gives the Congress and other people the right to remove a person from the presidency if he can no longer function. And that came into being after, of course, President Kennedy had not been judged dead, and there was a period of time in which you really kind of had nobody who was the president. So this current time, though, the Gartner and a bunch of other psychiatrists and psychologists, and they asked me to sign on to it, and I signed on to a letter. They put a letter out that was published in the New York Times that made a diagnosis. They said, we've seen him enough, we've observed his behavior enough, we're going to, tell you what it is. And they diagnosed him and people in general diagnosed him as having malignant narcissism. Now, malignant narcissism is different from just plain narcissism because it involves 4 full personality disorders. Any one of these personality disorders is really severe enough to be dangerous and to cause problems. So they said that he had narcissistic personality disorder, paranoid personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, what people commonly call a sociopath. Like how they diagnosed the guy Lecter in the movie Science of the Lambs,
Right.
and then last that he also was sadistic. And so to get into that a little bit, the implications of it when you're in office are really horrible. The paranoid is going to project onto other people the things that they see in themselves or that they feel. If they feel angry towards somebody, they'll accuse the other person of being angry. If they are a predator, they'll accuse another person of being a predator. If they are an aggressor, they'll accuse other people of being aggressor. And then you can imagine in the office of the president of the United States, this can be a problem.
Yeah.
So they project, they are suspicious, they question people's loyalty, they don't want to confide in people. This guy doesn't want to confide in the United States Congress.
Right.
He's going to go to war without confiding in the Congress or the Senate or letting them know what it is they're going to do. And he keeps persistent grudges. He remembers little slights from a long time ago. He will only let certain reporters into the press conferences, won't let others ask him questions, that sort of thing. He's quick to attack. All of these are characteristics of paranoid personality disorder. And as you see, they have what you call an expanding pseudo community. The people that they think are doing something to them eventually expands to all kinds of other people. And they start accusing even their friends and the people that they've been with. Now, we've seen this with NATO. He doesn't feel NATO did enough, even though NATO has been is the strongest alliance that the United States had before Donald Trump. They're the ones who helped them commit the atrocities they committed in Iraq and in Afghanistan. So all of this is a characteristic of the paranoid personality disorder. And if you look at it through history, this idea of projecting and of being suspicious, it goes throughout American history for the whole nation. If you look at America in general, you look at all these light-skinned Black people, the brown-skinned Black people, we range in shade from the darkest dark to the lightest light. That's not because of our that's not how we came here to the United States. It was because of the consistent rape that occurred on these plantations over the generations.
Right.
And yet, when they speak about it, they accuse the Klan. What do? They accuse Black people of rape. And our sister, Ida Wells, said, No. She did a book called The Red Record and said, people aren't getting lynched because they raped somebody. This is something that they're saying, but usually the real dispute is about them trying to steal the people's land, them trying to steal the people's property, them trying to aggrandize themselves, speaking about the slave monsters, that sort of thing. So paranoia has been something that has been consistent throughout American history. They lived in terror when they had one rebellion from Nat Turner. They lived in terror, that Blacks would do the same thing to them that they did to Black people. So when Black people were struggling for their independence and for their freedom, they felt they were always afraid that the kind of raping and brutality that they conducted would be conducted against them.
I'm glad you brought that up because, see, with my little non-scientific self, I'm thinking it sounds like you're humanizing them. I'm just thinking that they're just racist, I won't even use the word devil, but it seems to me that with all that accredited to how they act, and that is real. I have a segment on my show here asking my white sisters, what's wrong with your men? I'm making the assumption that, and that's rhetorical because they are pretty much involved themselves, but to the extent that they've been controlled. I see white men in a totally different frame of reference. It's like all groups have some issues with their men on some level, well, with all of us, but some men. But we know ours is accredited mostly to slavery, and that's another thing that I'm talking about in my podcast. But to the extent that the majority of theirs are like a Trump, but you kind of humanize them. I just think it was so inhuman that you would have, I think it's racism, but you have explained very eloquently, there's a psychological reasoning behind these folks who act like that. So go on. I'm sorry. Just what was the question?
Well, actually, I wasn't trying to give a psychological reasoning about it. I'm only labeling things. I'm labeling and describing behaviors and the diagnoses that they go with. These are not reality. Mm-hmm. These are models of reality. Okay. So that they get together, they make something called a diagnostic and statistical manual. Mm-hmm. And the professionals and get together and they come to a consensus. These are the kind of syndromes we see. These are the kind of behaviors that we see that go together, and they give it a label. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to explain it at all. Mm-hmm. I'm simply telling you what they say about paranoid personality disorder. Mm-hmm. Now, next, we talked about the issue of sociopathy, or it's real. Actually, right now they probably call it antisocial personality disorder. Mm-hmm. Antisocial personality disorder has all of these constitute the malignant narcissistic personality disorder, and the problem with it is that it's incurable. Mm-hmm. Psychiatrists can't help you. You got too much going on. It's beyond. It's like stage 7 cancer, and there'll only be like 5 stages or 4 stages, but it's like beyond anything. There's so many things going on. Mm-hmm. Now, antisocial, just for a person, just understand it in a nutshell, you're talking about a criminal. Basically, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about people that lie. You're talking about people that deceive. You're talking about people that cheat. You're talking about people that are impulsive, reckless, disregarding the rights of other people. That's what you mean when you say antisocial personality. And it has one unusual requirement, that you have to have evidence of this before the person is like 15 years old. Before they're 15 years old, you have to have evidence that they were like this. And we have stories that have been published about Trump throwing rocks at babies when he was a boy. And they have the names of the babies. And it's been documented in a couple of articles and books. One, The Bad Seed Donald Trump, by Audra Willis Carrasco. And the other one by a New York Times journalist, Maggie Haberman, in her book, The Confidence Man, The Making of Donald Trump. So you have all it, you have the evidence of both his sadistic behavior and his antisocial behavior. So the last thing I told you was sadism. And, certainly, if anything, the history of these people versus our people has sadism in it. I mean, it has superfluous violence, just joy. You get violence from joy. You hear them feeding babies to crocodiles. Right. So you can. That can be documented more recently. You take the lynching, the history of lynchings. You can read Ginsburg's book on lynching, or you can read the other book called Without Sanctuary on lynching. And in Without Sanctuary, they have a case that occurred in 1915 by the Brazos River, where a retarded boy was accused of killing a white woman, and they had a trial literally minutes, under 5 minutes. And then they beat him all the way from the trial, beat him all the way to the site of the lynching. They hung him up over a bonfire that they threw together. They castrated him. They cut off his ears. The boy, wailing, tried to get away from this, tried to climb up the skillet hot chain that they were hanging him from. And the thing about it is there were 15,000 people who gathered in Brazos to observe this. Right. To observe this lynching. And because he tried to escape, they cut off his fingers. And they would dip him down. It wasn't like they just were trying to punish him, to kill. They would dip him into the fire and raise him up. And every time they would raise him up, the crowd would cheer. This is sick stuff. We have pictures of people in their Sunday getup with their children standing in front of a lynched body. So the history of sadism throughout this, the actions of Andrew Jackson as he took the indigenous people from this continent and marched them from the east side of the country to beyond the Rockies, the elderly, the infirm, and so many of them were killed. So many instances, the punishments that were breaking on the wheel. We had right here in New York, and you would have the officials say, oh yeah, that's the best thing you could have done to them. A guy by the name of Thomas Hunter was a governor. And when they did that to some of the rebels in the 1700s, he thought that was perfect what they did. They did a thing called hanging in giblets, where they would chain the person up into a tree. No food, no water. For days, the person suffers up there, moans and groans and that sort of thing. So all of the things that have been attributed to Donald Trump could very likely be attributed to this country as a whole. I said antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, sadism, and paranoid personality disorder. Now, to get to the importance of this, you have a situation right now where you got a guy who was relishing in the fact that he was able to kill so many people. And the one of the characteristics of narcissism is that you don't have the empathy. You don't have empathy for people. It just rolls off of their tongue when they say, we killed all of the leadership. You know what I mean? When they have collateral damage of blowing up a school and killing school kids. All of this it rolls, that narcissism, that lack of empathy, it permeates this entire country. And I think some of the first signs you had, and what I'll do is I just want to show one slide, if I can. Let me see if I can find. I got to find you again. Okay, here you go. They're going to hit if you give me permission to share.
Sure.
Okay, so I sent the request. And now I'll try to share that particular slide that I wanted to show you. I think this is it. You have to bear with me.
And don't forget the cannibalism that went on. I just learned that that was part of their cruelty.
Oh, as a delicacy, what do you call it, black people? Yes. I mean, anything they wanted to do, which is what Joy DeGruy points out.
Right.
The fact, do you know who these women are on the right side?
The right side there.
Of the page. Can you see this page that I'm showing you?
Yes, we can see the page there.
Okay. So that's Melania.
Is that Melania?
That's Melania.
Why aren't we seeing more of that? When he gets to the notion of criticizing other people's wives or whatever, I'm just surprised we don't see more of that.
Yeah, that's the front of the New York Post. I mean, they say if you want to hide something from our people, where do you put it? You put it in the book. Well, it's in my book. It's also in. It's also in. It was in the newspaper, the front page of the tabloid in New York. Then you have remember those remarks he made about what he does, grabbing women, right? That sort of stuff. Yeah. Okay, all of that. And now the thing about it is, you want to see the sociopathy. This woman, Melania, got what's called an Einstein visa. She doesn't have to worry about ICE. She doesn't have to worry about ICE and these are the criteria for an Einstein visa. You can just quickly look them over. I'm not going to go through them.
Yeah, very extensive. You have to be somebody to get one of those. And I don't see where she qualified for any of that. They outlined it the other day. And I'm saying, where did she have any of the qualification to meet those standards? And we know that she doesn't.
Sister Ruby, listen, literally, I could talk about this stuff with you for hours, but rather than do that, what I think I'll do is give you a few minutes where if you want to ask some other questions or whatever about it. But I did want to share one thing. People keep talking about the Epstein.
No, please go on. You answered all right. Well,
I'll just go on then. I'll just go on. There's over 20 women that have accused him of either assault or other kinds of sexual inappropriate behavior towards them.
Right.
But to me, one of the most horrific was one that was a case just that was out maybe up till around 2 days before he was elected initially, and it was put in formal court papers. A woman whose pseudonym is alternately something like Jane Doe, and Katie Johnson is the name of the, that was filed in the lawsuit against Trump. And she claimed that Epstein and Trump raped her when she was 13 years old. Now, one of the significant things about this is that this occurred in 1994. Mm-hmm. Guess who else was 13 years old in 1994? His daughter, Ivana, who people, he's made remarks that people have challenged as being very inappropriate.
Yes,
but there's the thing about it is that you can go on Google, and I'm going to post the links in the chat, post the links, and hear this woman's testimony herself. You can look at her, and she tells you the whole story in 29 minutes. There's a shorter version, there's a longer version. Mm-hmm. And the longer version is 29 minutes. You can hear everything she had to say about what occurred. And she describes him tying her to a bed, raping her, and that she was a virgin at the time that this had occurred. Oh. She was one of the young girls that Epstein had there. She was a virgin. She says that he took her virginity, that he was totally unfeeling with respect to her screams and cries. And there was another witness. And the thing about these papers is that it has a witness. Exactly. There's a witness. And the thing is I'm going to show you pictures from the lawsuit. I'm just going to show, so you can go online yourself and see this. And then I'm going to paste in the chart the link where you can, if you choose to, you can look at these things yourself. So there's no real need for any more papers because you got sworn testimony in a civil suit that could be investigated by the Justice Department should they choose to. And one of the most horrific things about it is that she said that he warned her that if she said anything to anybody about it, that she would disappear like this other little girl. I can't remember the other little girl's name, whether it was Susie or Mary or whatever it was. And she recounted there being a young girl who was there who just disappeared. Oh. Some things may have relevance. They may not have any relevance, but there is the evidence of Epstein purchasing many, many barrels of sulfuric acid. Oh my Lord. So, he'll have his reasons why he said he brought it. Other people have other theories. I don't think that's so important. What I think is important is to go online, listen for yourself. You know when something has the ring of truth, when somebody's saying something that has the ring of truth, you listen to it, you look at the documentation, you look at the name of the witness, you look at, the witness that was, or that swore to this also, and you put it in the context. These things were hidden from you, but you put it into the context of now all of these things coming up about
Epstein. Isn't that what this war is all about? You will imagine?
Well, certainly a part of it is, as you point out, distraction to keep people. So let me find the chat. Anybody how people on this, will they be able to see this chat?
Or only Norm, will they be able to see the chat?
Not for Zoom. Facebook chat.
Well, there it is. If you want to put it on your YouTube or wherever it is that people can see, they can look for themselves. I put two things on there. I put the one where you can see the woman, hear her testimony, and the other one where you can see the court papers that were filed.
And that's from YouTube? You can get that through YouTube?
That's not on YouTube. That's just on the internet. Well, the video is on YouTube. Yes. The video is on YouTube of her testimony.
Okay. Oh.
Okay, so you said to just go ahead. Well, I can continue to go ahead.
Go on, because this is information that we need. This is the hope. Okay. This is the nature of the show. We are not going to perish for lack of information. I'm going to bring it here, regardless.
Okay, so I've given you plenty of evidence for the paranoia, plenty of evidence for the sociopathy and the narcissism. Betty Dobson is calling me at this particular point. I just
Well, take her call, because at the
meantime,
meantime, I'm gonna bring my Norm. Let me bring my people up. I know they're excited. They are coming on now.
Okay.
Robert Cavistock, good. Lloyd Shiver, good afternoon, family. Checking in from New Bern. Janice Heiser, good afternoon from New Bern. Joy Jackson, California. Skia, good afternoon. Links to Johnson Terry.
Share these links.
Oh, okay. The sharing the link. Oh, great. I appreciate you, Villinger. You'll know I depend on you. You know I get the energy when I see your names up there. So I appreciate it. Okay, you can continue, Dr. McIntosh. Hello? Do we have him on?
He just said he's talking to the lady.
Oh, okay. So I just want to say that this is what you hear when you tune into our podcast. We're going to bring people who are going to bring the news information to us. At least we perish for lack of it. We don't intend to do that because we know that there's information out there that we're not getting normally through the other channels. And when you understand what you're hearing and what you're seeing, you learn to put us in a proper contact. You won't point fingers at us as though we are lacking in some way. You know, you all know that I got a documentary. I want to quickly bring that to your attention too. It's coming out soon. The documentary is twofold. Talks about don't dismiss us as the elders, and that's because you cannot compare elders of the African American community to the elders of other communities. Elders in other communities sort of organically move from position to position, leaving, whomever, whatever they need to leave. Ours been so disrupted and so severed that we cannot be left aside. We have to keep connection. Otherwise, if we don't keep the connection, we'll lose on a lot of things that we have gained through the process. And we got to always remember, this podcast tried to emphasize, slavery for us was not just a crime, it was an injury. And I'm trying to promote the notion that we should treat it as an injury. And if we treat it as an injury, we're going to have to start getting people, our experts, I call it unapologetic amateur, looking for experts in Africanism. That's deliberate and intentional. Because when I say experts, I mean the folks like Dr. McIntosh and those, Dr. DeGraw, but they got to come together as the oncologist does. Oncologists can't be here, there, and there. They got to act as though it's a disease. I call it African Slave Virus 401, meaning that we have gotten information. Now we got to get with the cure of what make us like we are, the Clarence Thomases of the world, the Candace Owens of the world. Let me know when Dr. McIntosh come back on.
I'm back.
Okay.
I'm back.
Okay, doctor.
Okay.
Continue.
So, one of the other things I guess that I could point out is that the exact same accusations that have been made of Trump were made of Adolf Hitler. Mm-hmm. And that this diagnosis, the diagnosis of malignant narcissism, actually comes from someone making reference to the Holocaust that occurred in Germany, which of course involved not only Jews but Gypsies, Africans, and other people. Yeah. But it was Eric Fromm was the one who came up with the diagnosis. But Hitler, his career was nearly ruined. I don't know if you can. Are you still sharing the screen now? Do you see my screen?
Yeah, I see your screen. 3 to 10 cents
okay.
required.
So that was his niece, who he was obsessed with, and it's pretty widely known that he murdered her, and he murdered her in a jealous rage, and it had to be covered up for in order for his whole career not to be. And she was also his contact with her was when she was a young underage girl.
Now all I see here is I see the notice 3 of 10 criteria required for Einstein visa.
That's all. We're on a different slide. I don't know why. I'm going to stop the share for a second, and then I'm going to try to share it again and come up to the right slide.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Right now, you're seeing Gelly Rabal.
Yes, yes. Hitler's niece
Okay,
died
that's
under
Hitler.
very
That's his niece. That's his niece. And
circumstances.
some of the same words, the OSS, which was the entity that preceded the CIA, was the American Intelligence Agency before the CIA, the OSS. They hired people to do profiles on Hitler to try to see what because in warfare you do not only the military, you do the psychological also. You want to know who your enemy is, and although this quote wasn't meant for this, but I think it was Mao said, know your enemy, know yourself, 100 battles, 100 victories, So the OSS did all these types of diagnoses of Hitler, and they used some of the same words, the malignant, the narcissism, the social, all of that was uncovered. And among the things they said, and this allowed me to make a prediction I made in the book, because there was a time when his biographer said that Trump was getting ready to resign. And I wrote, no, he's not getting ready to resign. This type of person doesn't do that. No. They pointed out Hitler was going to fight till, Hitler died after sequestering himself in a bunker with some of his people, and some of them committed suicide.
Right.
And, some of them, were captured. But the bottom line is that he fought down to the last. He destroyed the whole continent of Europe rather than to stop what he was doing. And this guy would do the same thing to the whole continent of North America.
Exactly.
And indeed, he has the power now that Hitler did this with conventional weapons. This man has nuclear power. And we heard him threatening to destroy a civilization. We heard him the other day when you want to go, what is the epitome of ignorance and apathy? It comes from a joke. There's a joke where the person says, why are you so ignorant and apathetic? And the person says, I don't know and I don't care. Been demonstrating both ignorance and apathy.
Right.
Well, he said this in response to whether or not the Iranians were going to return to the negotiation table, when he has the whole world on the brink of world war. All it takes is just a little bit over here and a little bit over there, and you got something that can't be contained.
Yeah.
So that's the significance of it for us. As I said before, you said you had some people that wanted to say something to me. I'm ready to hear anything.
I don't know. I just was I bring them up, but we are not we're not capable of doing that. But I would like to ask you, how would you say the public? Yeah, how would you say the public should take all this information, aside from the fact I know we should get out there and vote and everything? But how would you suggest the public? Because we all are frustrated, obviously, confused, and this kind of information I believe is helpful to us. At least it will give some explanation behind this madman that we are dealing with. I'm out there. I believe that collectively people have to do what they can to try to pressure the Congress and the court into doing their responsibilities. I think that on a personal level, people should get their passports. People should get an exit plan, and that people should be prepared to defend themselves, because this is a dangerous time, and he is not going to stop at the immigrants. And he, the only time you ever saw him back up a little bit is when those people in Milwaukee came out in the streets, and of course that's after killing a couple of people that he did that. Yeah. So that's among the things. The things you said about voting. Well, Malcolm said by any means necessary. If voting can work, I can't say that it will. I can't say that it won't. But if it'll work, then try to get him out by voting. But as I tell you before, he's making all of the preparations not to relinquish power. Yes, he
has no intention of giving up. Why do you think he's building camps? The courts just had to stop him with the building of these prisons all around the country. The people in Hagerstown, Maryland, raised such a fuss that they were able to stop the building of the prison that they were planning to build there. And of course, all of that is temporary, because this type of person doesn't stop. They just come back at it a little bit later. And so those things, he's preparing for mass insurrection.
Yes, yes.
They have draconian laws that were put into position long ago. He liberally employs the Emergency Powers Act, so much so that the court had to tell him, no, this ain't an emergency right here that you're using it for. But that doesn't, with the tariffs. But then what did he do? He'll create the crisis in order to use the Emergency Powers Act. And under that, you can be put in prisons and nobody know.
Yeah.
You can be taken to places nobody knows where it's at. You saw the things that were done to the immigrants. You saw the threats that he lodged of sending someone to South Sudan.
Yeah.
All of these are, don't take the threats of a bully lightly. George Jackson told his younger brother, when a bully threatens you, his next word should be through bruised lips. Now, I'm speaking metaphorically, that the people have to get out in the streets on these No Kings marches. The people have to they have to get into office during the midterms, people that will hold this guy's feet to the fire.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean what party you're in. It means what is your record of combating encroaching fascism.
Right.
These are some of the things that people have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my opinion.
Great
and
opinion.
Again,
change on, you know what, Dr. McIntosh, too, another thing, and I know this is looking backward, but we need to, I always believed, with great resources, that Donald Trump stole this last election. And because many people were afraid to say it because they didn't want to be looked like conspiracy theorists, and just because they had made that complaint, back when they say the Democrats stole it. So some people would say, well, if we say that, we'll sound like them. What is truth? The truth is the truth. And he had the elements available to him to steal it. The richest man in the world. He had the majority of white folks.
Slot machines and other places.
And everything. So I go with this quote that said, don't know who to attribute it to, but I like the quote that said, change only comes when truth is told aloud, when spoken aloud. And if we had spoken very aloud that you stole this election, and we know now he defies, and he doing just as what you said. He planning the steal of this election, and he's empowered to do that now because he has all the elements available to him. So that's just frightful. That is very frightening to think.
He's fired all of the experienced people. He's fired even a chaplain general, because obviously that's a person. And I don't know if he's fired any judge advocate, generals or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that you don't have people who even know not to follow illegal orders. Exactly. He wanted to jail the people who just wanted to instruct soldiers. Listen, if this guy tells you to do, or if a president or anybody, an officer, anybody tells you to do something that's illegal, don't do it.
Right.
And he doesn't want that. He wants just absolute obedience and so-called loyalty. And this thing you said of talking about stealing the election, it would make sense because paranoids project.
Yeah.
The things they do, they accuse other people. This man, his mother was an immigrant from Scotland. His grandmother was an immigrant from Bavaria, a part of Germany. And his grandfather was an immigrant from a part of Germany. And yet he would be accusing Obama. Obama had more had lineage more linked to the United States than he had.
Oh, definitely.
And he tried to say that Obama was not a citizen, and that that he wasn't born here and that sort of thing. So this is a dangerous time. This is a serious time, and people need to act accordingly.
Definitely. I'm so glad to have you on here. But just let me tell my villagers, don't forget I just released, well, you all know about my new only children book. That's my first children book. What's in a Name? must you tell everybody? Very quickly, I want to engage you all in that. It's for all children, run the gamut. But what it does, it talks about how we as African people will loosely use the N-words. That's why I'm concentrating on, really, the N-word. And I say to you, this book started, it was over 20 years now, it was in the making, because my little nephew, about 4 years old at the time, no, he was about 11, he was just in school, and he came up from Virginia. Rose, my sister, is the godmother, so she was asking him and his sister, say, well, how are you doing? And he said, I'm doing good. And she said, no, you're not. He said, must you tell everything? And that would begin what she was a little tattler, so he would often have to say, must you tell everything? To the extent that when she got to school, she told the teacher her name was Must. So what the book is about, what's in a name. We have to be very careful how we talk about to each other, because we can easily believe that we are that N-word we talk about, and we know we're nothing like that. I am just so pleased. I told you all, I said I'm going to have Dr. McIntosh on, and he's going to give us some information that we really need, because the motto of my podcast is I quote the scripture almost every time I get on. My people will perish for lack of knowledge. And we don't intend that to happen here. And the knowledge that we are bringing here comes above and beyond probably some that I won't even say that. We've got a lot of knowledge. We've got a lot of experts that come out with these books. Dr. DeGraw, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. We know Dr. John Henry Clark. We got the expert. But I'm concentrating now on the cure. That's what I concentrate on. We may have experts when it comes to cancer, our oncologists. They have the information. But if they didn't get together for the cure, we wouldn't have. So that's what I want our people to concentrate on, and it's going to take deliberation and intentionality to say, okay, we got to treat what we went through as a virus. That's why I named it African Slave Virus 401. And that doesn't mean that we are affected by it, but it doesn't mean we are damaged to the point that we don't rise above it. The greatness in us rise above what they did to us, but the bottom line is we have been damaged, and it's still going on. I'm at the end of a very great podcast. Appreciate you, Dr. McIntosh. Anytime you want to come back with some information for us, because that's what this podcast is about, we're going to learn something if it's wrong. No, it's not going to ever be wrong, but we're going to learn something. Okay. I'm determined. You want to say something, Sister
Ruby? Thank you, Sister Ruby. I'm going to be at Refal in Newark, New Jersey on Sunday, April the 26th, and that's located at 269 South 9th Street, Newark, New Jersey. And for information about that, people can call 862-231-1940. The day before that, in South Ozone Park, Queens, New York, CEMOTAP has a program at 2 p.m. with Dr. Ray Winbush. And our topic is going to be the gravest crime against humanity, which is what the resolution from the General Assembly was just a few weeks ago that was initiated by Ghana. And that's going to be at 13505 Rockaway Boulevard, South Ozone Park, Queens, New York. For information about that, you can call 347-907-0629. It's better to text. And again, that number is 347-907-0629.
0629.
Thank you again for everybody who was involved in putting together the program. Sister Ruby, I'm telling you, I had to limit myself, because if we go into this into more detail with all of the examples of the sadistic behavior, the paranoid behavior, the narcissistic behavior, you could be here all day.
Okay, well, we're definitely going to have you back, because we need that information. Very necessary. At least it will soothe our soul. We're going through some tough time. Okay, my villager, thank you all for watching. See you next Monday, and God bless. Yes.